Hey everyone, welcome to day 17 of the Bible reading plan. I hope you've read Matthew chapter 17 and we're just going to dive on in it. Today we're going to focus on the first part of Matthew 17 and it's a famous account. It is the transfiguration of Jesus. Jesus takes his inner circle, the Peter, James, and John. He leads them up on a mountain, and while there, it says in verse 3, and behold, there appeared to them Moses and Elijah talking with Christ. You see, their faces are lit up. Jesus is in a different form. He's transfigured, and they're glowing, and their clothes are white as light. Their face are shining like the sun. And Peter, he is just ecstatic at this. And I think that's something that has something to say for us. Peter wants to stay in this moment. And what he does, he says, let's just stay here. Let's put 3 tents up so we can honor these 3 men. And that's kind of something that we often want to do. When we're in the highs of highs, when we're on the mountains in our life, we want to stay there. But when it's time to go off, when it's time to follow Christ off those mountains and into those valleys, which are always going to happen, we don't want to. We want to stay on those valleys. We want to say that feeling, But I just want to tell you, be prepared to go in those valleys in life. Be prepared to follow Christ wherever he may lead you. And Peter, he was distracted by others' glory in this. He saw the 3 men and he wanted to glorify Moses and Elijah as well. But what's significant about Jesus that stands out between Moses and Elijah, it's in verse 8, and it's really important. So listen to this. It says, when they lifted up their eyes, they saw no one but Jesus only. That's a really important word, Jesus only. You see, if they would have looked up and they would have seen Moses only, what that would mean is that Moses would have been the bringer of salvation to the earth. The only way to get to heaven will be to follow the law of Moses, which is impossible to follow, and all of us have come short and broken that law. And if they would have looked up and saw Elijah, they would have, Elijah was known as the great prophet, the great pastor. He spoke to Israel. He preached to Israel. He was the great preacher. And if we would have, looked up and only seen him, then, it would have showed us that the way to God was just as good as a preacher could get you to. As in, how much Elijah could have shown them God is how close they can get to God. So Elijah would be relying on the works of man to get to Christ. But no, when they looked up, they saw Jesus only. You see, Jesus is the only one who can truly save us of our sins. Peter denied him 3 times. We see James, he ran from him at the cross. And then John, he was one who stayed, and he was a good man. But they were all in different places, and Jesus still chose to die for him. He still chose to love them, and he still chose to die for you and love you. And he knew what he was buying on the cross. We said that Sunday. Jesus knew he was buying on the cross. He knew your sin, yet he still chose to die for that sin. So let's just be happy that when they looked up, they saw Jesus only. And when if they would have looked up and they would have seen Elijah, I'm sure they would have, like I said, it would be relying on the works of man. Elijah would have been the symbol of, preaching would get you to heaven if that were the case. And I just think about that, and I think, is Sunday morning the only time you spend time with God? Is when I'm preaching the only time? Do you let my sermons replace the relationship you should be having individually with God? Do you let church be the only time that you allow for that growth in your spirit, in your faith? Have you boxed up Christianity and thrown it into Sunday and nothing else? And if you have today, I just want to remind you that when you look up, you should see no one but Jesus. It shouldn't be, church. It shouldn't be me as a replacement for your relationship with God. I want you day in and day out to look up and see nothing but Jesus, to be in that relationship with Christ every day. Because when Peter and James and John, they looked up, they saw only Jesus. They didn't see regular men who would have tried to get them to heaven. They saw Christ. He's the only one that can get us to heaven. A good pastor, a good preacher can't get you to heaven. I'm not going to get you to heaven by any means. So your only hope is Christ. And that's a relationship with Christ that you should have every day of your life. It shouldn't just be on Sunday. And if you only think about Christ on Sunday and the only thing you're doing in your Christian walk is going to church on Sunday, then you might want to rethink what you're doing. You might want to consider that maybe you don't have a relationship with Christ. Maybe you just have a relationship with church, or maybe you just have a relationship with the people who go to church. Because when I look up, I want to see Jesus only, day in and day out, every second of my life. I want to be following the man, Jesus Christ, who paid it all on the cross for my sins. Don't follow the church. Don't follow me. Please follow Christ. Thank you for joining me for Matthew 17. I hope to see you tomorrow. Have a great day.